Hi, my name is Corme. This is my cat Messi, who never leaves me alone. I'm someone who usually just always plays with Spot'em, meaning that I've played like almost every healer at this point. Over the past few weeks that there's been Mythic Plus Dragonflight testing on the beta, I've been spending as much time in the dungeons on as many healers as I can, trying to test them out and get a good feel for them, what's fun, what I like, what I don't like, playing around with talents, all that kind of stuff. And today I specifically want to talk about Holy Paladin. So I spent, I think, like all of Saturday playing Holy Paladin in Keys, and I actually was surprised by how much I like it. I did not like playing Holy Paladin last expansion inside of Keys. I didn't mind it in Raid, but in Keys I was just not having a good time, and I was actually kind of surprised by how much I enjoyed playing it on Saturday, and by how strong it was. Mostly because I feel like everyone is just talking about Evoker and Resto Druid, and they're not ranking Holy Paladin as being low. Like, they're ranking it like not far behind that. But I really do feel like it's being a bit undersold right now with how strong it is. And before I get into that and I get into talents and stuff like that, I do want to give just some examples of gameplay, like how much healing and damage they're doing on like typical trash pulls and bosses, just to give you like a baseline of what they look like, because I understand that not everyone is on beta and not everyone has time to watch, so I just want to give you those examples before I go any further. Okay, just to give you an example of just a typical pull of good healing and damage, I'm going to show you the first pull in Ruby Life pull. So there's this big rock guy, and he periodically does a bunch of damage. You can see we're going in, we're already unhealthy, but there's still a good enough amount of mobs to hit. There's also things you have to dodge, things that create area denial on the floor, which means I'm having to move my Consecrate. Things aren't stacked up perfectly. And like I said, there's damage, so I have to heal it. So I think this is a good idea of like a realistic pull for a Holy Paladin, how much damage and healing they can do. So you can see I'm like around 30k DPS right now. I did have wings on pull, and then we just killed that big guy, and we're gonna like get down to like these 4 people, and then like our DPS will kind of slowly trickle down as we have less mobs to hit. But Holy Paladin DPS is basically pretty similar to what it was in Shadowlands. Like, you're just dumping all of your spare holy power into Shield of the Righteous. It feels like Shield of the Righteous, like, relative, it's doing a lot more. It's doing a lot. Like, if you have the holy power to spend to put into DPSing, Holy Paladin's gonna be doing like on like large pulls, you know, like 50k DPS easily if they're not having to heal. That being said, with the recent changes to our health pools, that might not be as realistic all the time, especially when we start getting into higher keys. Always being able to dump your holy power into DPSing might not be it. However, the saving grace is that most of your damage is actually just Consecrate on the ground. Like, it is mostly just Consecrate. And even if you're just keeping like Consecrate down and just like, you know, doing your normal like Crusader Strike to like get your holy power and stuff like that, you're still gonna do pretty decent DPS. And we also have a talent now called Incandescence, which I'll talk about later. But basically, when you're spending holy power healing, it has a chance to like flare up your Consecrate, and you get some free damage from that as well. So next, I want to go into a little bit of like a healing example. So I'm gonna go to the first boss in here because she requires a lot of healing. Okay, so we're going into the first boss. Meladrusa Chillworm, I don't know how to say her name. She always does these hail bombs that brings you really low, and then she has a chill storm, which is like you have to like run from this sucky thing, and it does a lot of damage to you, and then she spawns ads, and those ads do ticking damage, and it's just a lot of like, it feels like bursty healing, but it's just like you constantly need to be doing bursty healing. So you can see right now we're up around like 50k HPS, and for the most part I feel like on Holy Paladin, like, I had no trouble maintaining this amount of healing without even using the healer cheater trinket, which I'll post up here if you haven't seen it before. But people have been using this whole last weekend to try and get through some of these bosses, which are really spooky because of the health changes. But yeah, you can see we're at like close to 60k HPS right now. I think I just popped Holy Avenger. Haven't used AM yet. Still got Bubble, still got Sack, still got Lay on Hands, all those nice tools that Holy Paladin still has. Health is a little spooky right now, but I'm taking this time to catch up a little bit. She's going to do her next Chill Storm. And then we have Divine Toll coming up for that. Do lots of healing. See how we're holding like 55k. Skip ahead a bit. This is on the second wave of ads. Again, we're still holding like 50k HPS. Still got bubbles. Still got like a lot of our tools. Again, still haven't used our trinket. Okay, now I bubbled at the end there because it was getting spooky to sack someone. But yeah, basically I just want to show you on this. You can easily hold a lot of healing with playing a Holy Paladin, and then also you're bringing like all the tools of the DR while having really good HPS throughput. Another good example is just the last little mini boss in this dungeon. We can do good healing. If you're not familiar with this Ravati, the High Channeler, she does like a lightning storm like 5 seconds into the pull. Does a lot of massive AoE in a short amount of time. Sorry about my cat. But basically I'm able to heal through without having like wings, just using Holy Avenger, saving my Divine Toll, saving my AM, all that good stuff. And I'll save that for a later one. Just as like a shield you have to break. You can see we're at like 50k HPS. And then by the end of it, we end around 50k HPS. I think we only had to heal probably like 3 of those because this wasn't fortified. But I don't think Holy Paladin would have any trouble healing this on fortified as well based on that. Because I didn't end up like, yeah, health potting, bubbling, a bunch of other really nice devices and things that Holy Paladin has to deal with that kind of damage. Okay, this is the last healing example I want to give you. So there are these void spawns. They're changing them this week, so they're not as awful and they're not going to have a dot, and so they're just going to one-shot you off the rip if you don't LOS them. However, so we end up pulling one here, and I wasn't expecting to pull one, so I don't have wings and I don't have Holy Avenger. I just have like, you know, your regular Holy Paladin tools of just like AM, bubble, all that kind of stuff, but no throughput CDs. And so I just kind of want to show you this to show how strong I think Holy Paladin is right now for dealing with the amount of healing we need to do. As you can see, I pulled there, so I took a lot of damage on full. Because people are already doing like 60k HPS, and then the big damage comes out, and we have Divine Toll come up. Again, no wings, no HA. Just gonna be able to raw dog heal this by using like bubble, sack. I had to use my cheater trinket here though, that's why we shot up in HPS. I'm just showing you that class isn't, we're at 60k on that one. Isn't super reliant on CDs, and you get such good wings uptime on this class as well. I just think it's really strong. Okay, so now that I gave you some examples, gave you an idea of what the class kind of looks like, how it plays, how strong its healing, and how pretty, like, you know, consistent its damage is on like these pulls, even when you're having to do healing, because that's just how Holy Paladin is. It's a class that has to damage to heal, and so, you know, it's gonna keep damaging even when there's a lot of healing to do, which has always given it a nice leg up. I'm gonna talk to you guys a little bit about talents. So obviously this is beta, there is no correct build yet, like there's still plenty of time, but I would say this is pretty close to what I've seen everyone on Holy Paladin running, with the exception of these two talent points. These two talent points I have been seeing people experiment with, but there are a lot of good things in here. Of course, you take AM, you take bubble, you take all of your basic stuff up here. Like there's nothing really that exciting up here that's new except for maybe Divine Favor, which honestly I don't press that much. Like Holy Paladin basically just plays the exact same it did in Shadowlands, where it's just like you're building holy power, you're pressing Word of Glory, and all that kind of stuff. And there's like other synergies in the tree which make it really nice. Getting Divine Toll, amazing. Getting Divine Resonance, amazing. Right after that, it just leads straight into Glimmer of Light. Like they didn't even like, I feel like the other trees, like they would have purposely put like Glimmer of Light like somewhere over here, you know, like not next to all the other things you wanted, but like the Holy Punch tree it just flows, man. It just flows. And you do end up taking the Avenging Right Math, not the melee wings, because this is mostly just like single target type DPS spells and stuff like that. Not that you aren't doing that as well, but the Avenging Right Math ends up being, I said math, might ends up being better due to math. You get Awakening, and then for the most part, sorry my cats. Hi, quick interruption. My cat messed up the audio on the other one, so I'm re-recording this part so you guys don't have to listen to him rubbing against the mic the whole time. So as I was saying, with this tree, for the most part, a lot of your talent points do feel locked down, not in a bad way in my opinion, just in like a way like, oh, it's really obvious that I want this. And then you basically have like 2 talent points that are kind of like movable right now and being like debated on. And it's between Relentless Inquisitor, Veneration, Crusader's Might, and Blessing of Summer. So in my opinion, I think at least one of these points should go into Blessing of Summer. Blessing of Summer is okay. It's not amazing, it's not PI or anything like that, but it is something, and I think especially since it is going to be, or it's looking like a Havoc DH meta, this button could be really good. And I'm going to show you guys something at the end of the video to show you what I'm talking about. And that basically gives you 1 point. So Relentless Inquisitor gives you haste based on using finishers, and then it's activated 3 times and the buff lasts 12 seconds. This one is okay. It kind of feels bad because you drop stacks quite a bit, like going between packs. And then has some other weird interactions with Dusk of Dawn over here, I should talk about later. And then Veneration, this is the one for the most part that I was enjoying using the most. So Flash of Light, Holy Light, and Judgment Critical Strikes reset the cooldown of Hammer of Wrath and make it usable on any target, regardless of their health. So I'm not really casting Flash of Light or Holy Light like ever. Like sure, I'm taking these down points, but I'm not using them. This is mostly just from Judgment Critical Strikes, and I wasn't getting an amazing amount of damage out of it. But Hammer of Wrath is a really big button, and so getting like 5 or 6 like over like the course of the key is still like a really good amount of damage. And then Crusader's Might is the same as it's always been. It just takes 1 second off the cooldown of Holy Shock whenever you use Crusader Strike. So also another really solid option to get some more damage and healing. What you do with that, I think it's totally up to you. For the most part, I will take Veneration. Outside of that, like the wiggle room on this, you can also take Beacon of Virtue. So I think there is a time and a place to take Beacon of Virtue. So in BFA, we saw Paladins taking Beacon of Virtue in Sanguine Depths. Because like just like the damage pattern in there, like all the bosses were pretty difficult except for the last boss. You need a lot of healing. And even like on the trash, you did need like a lot of healing. That was like a bit more like of a constant throughput situation where I think I would prefer Beacon of Faith. However, on all the bosses, which are really hard, Beacon of Virtue was really good. And I think Ruby Life Pools is kind of in the same boat where for the most part, the first and last boss have these really high healing moments where Beacon of Virtue feels really good. And there's enough like time between each damage event on the first boss that Beacon of Virtue feels good. And then also on like the Thunder ads before the last boss, Beacon of Virtue feels really good. I don't think it feels amazing to me on like the Fire Circle section ads in Ruby Life Pools, but like that's not the hardest part of the dungeon, and so it's not really going to dictate which I take. I personally, most of the time, always prefer to keep Beacon of Faith because this is another global. Yeah, it's just another global. I don't want to have to keep pressing it. But I could definitely see an argument for taking this instead of Ruby Life Pools, and maybe some other dungeons I'll try it out in it and I'll like fit there as well. However, right now the only one I think I would take it in is Ruby Life Pools. There's also maybe a time and a place for like a Light of the Martyr build. I don't feel like Holy Paladin needs healing. Like I said, I think their healing is like really strong. I think this tree is really good. Like I don't feel like I'm missing out on a lot. Like very good right side of the tree. And it's also got like a really good left side of the tree. Okay, so first things first, looking at this tree. First thing we hone in on, we get a melee kick. Looking at this melee kick is important, looking at the fact that the 2 healers right now that are looking like the best are Resto Druid and Invoker. And then I'm going to set you guys back to my original audio where I'm talking about that. Resto Druid, not even getting a kick. Invoker, there's like a 45-second kick, so compared to that, way better. You are also getting 1 minute Blessing of Sacrifice. Absolutely owns. Of Dusk and Dawn, nice little buff. I wasn't doing a great job during testing of min-maxing this all the time until like I think like the last 2 keys I started thinking like, oh, maybe I should like pay attention to this a bit more. And I noticed it helped me a little bit more with doing some more damage inside keys. You also get Sanctified Wrath, Seal of Alacrity, which is some nice haste, and then you get to choose between Divine Purpose or Holy Avenger the same way that you used to with the other tree. I'm sorry, my cat is just so annoying. I have been playing with Holy Avenger just because I think it's like a nice little like layover when like, because like you have wings most of the time, like you get really high uptime on wings. You know, let's say you don't have wings or there's just some like really bursty healing you have to get through, which is like, seems like it's a really common type of thing inside of these dungeons. Like there's nothing like there's hard healing fights, but you know, like you think of something like Galvaz, which was like 2 expansions ago in BFA, but you constantly needed healing during that, and you need like a little bit more at some point, but you constantly need healing. It doesn't really feel like there's anything like that. There's just like a lot of fights that are really bursty, or they just have like a lot of like bursty moments like back to back that you have to get through, and that you need like large CDs to get through, especially with these health changes. And so I've been liking the reliability of knowing and planning out my Holy Avenger. Maybe that will change in the future, especially if this cheater trinket goes away. I feel like this cheater trinket is literally a cheater trinket. It's acting as an extra CD, and every healer was basically using it this last weekend after the health changes, so it was not me or Holy Paladin alone using this. It was just a really nice button to try and like hold you over and get you through these dungeons. Yeah, maybe if that I don't know. I still think that I would pick Holy Avenger given how things are right now. But I think the trees like really get like the number one thing I've noticed is that it feels like on Holy Planet you're able to just get all of your utility that you ever had. Like I feel like the other classes, like it's hard to get the things that you had in the past and like keep up like all the damage you want. And I feel like you're just not strapped for that on this tree. Like the only thing maybe you want like this avoidance. There could be something where you want to reduce Bop. Mastery meh. Silver meh. Like these are all just like small little things that are like kind of nice, but like nothing major. Like you feel like that you're keeping a lot of the utility that you brought in Shadowlands and bringing a little bit more, and I don't feel like strapped. Okay, so now that we've talked about all that, the next topic I kind of want to tackle is, so competing for the top spots, there's a few reasons why Evoker and Resto Druid are up there. So Evoker is bringing Real Lust, and then Resto Druid is bringing Mark of the Wild. I think if you take either of those things away, they don't really stand up as a top healer as much compared to this. So I do want to talk a little bit about like the strengths of HPAL and like what comps and things you would want another. So like if there's another druid in your comp, like I think Resto Druid goes from S tier to B tier. But there's not really another good druid, so they might just get to stay there. They are definitely doing less damage than Holy Paladin is right now, and their healing, it's different. It's like, it's definitely more healing, but they don't have as many tools and DRs, and like I said, they're not bringing things like kick. Like I feel like Holy Paladin is way more useful inside of a key. And then Evoker, really good damage. Obviously they're bringing Mark the Wild, but they are bringing Real Lust. So right now the comp that's looking most likely is definitely like Windwalker and Havoc DH, and then given those two DPS, it could be Bedroom Hunter or Prot Warrior, but your best bet is probably gonna be Prot Warrior, and then that third DPS spot is flexible, so if that's like a mage that brings Lust, maybe Evoker brings a little bit of value and Resto Druid gains some more value. Maybe if the Feral Druid's actually not looking bad, then you're definitely gonna want like an Evoker, or like if it's just like a non-Lust class, you definitely do want a Lust class because Real Lust is very good. Outside of that, I do think that Holy Paladin is just an all-around good healer, and it does good consistent damage throughout a key. And so I'm saying I think it's being a bit underestimated, especially if we do fall. That's super unlikely. I don't want people to take this out of context, but like if we fall under a meta where DPS, we are not like grinding so much for DPS to push high keys, and like it becomes a little bit more about survivability. I think Holy Paladin is the absolute best for that, especially when it comes to like tyrannical keys and stuff like that. Given how some of these bosses are, I think they have the best kit to deal with it, and so I could see Holy Paladin pulling ahead because of that. I think a lot of the dungeon timers, I think the only one that's felt like tight so far is like No Kid, but it's really hard to tell from 15s. So I know I'm rambling a bit and I'm going like a bit back and forth, but all I'm really trying to say is Holy Paladin has a really good kit. They don't have like, you know, the trump card of bringing the Real Lust or bringing Mark of the Wild, but I do think they have really good healing, good consistent damage, and a lot of tools to help you get through a key, and I think people are kind of forgetting about that. I also think people are maybe, I'm not saying that Blessing of Summer is amazing, but I think they're underestimating it a little bit if you have a Havoc DH. I have a log I can show you. This is from testing Kurog a couple weeks ago. I just want to show you this. So Blessing of Summer, you have a 30% chance to do 40% more damage for 30 seconds. So depending on the class you put on, it's going to do better or worse. So like the only time it was really useful in Shadowlands was in Anduin on like Moonkins, and they used to like pop off with it. However, I do think it is also really good for Demon Hunters inside of keys. This is just in Kurog, so it's just a single target boss. But this is just from our Demon Hunter in the guild when he got it, and it did 12% of his damage during this 30-second window that he had it. Of course, he also had Lust during this window, so that's like a little caveat. But a lot of people only like estimate based on how you read the tooltip that's gonna be like somewhere around like 5% like damage during that 30 seconds. But just because of how Demon Hunter is, it is a lot of damage. It comes up every 3 minutes. Meta comes up every 3 minutes. It is a small damage gain compared to things like PI, Mark of the Wild, having a real lust versus no lust. However, I do think it is worth mentioning, and so I did want to put it in this video. In addition to that, just the other blessings you get from Blessing of Summer, you get Blessing of Autumn. Not really that useful. It takes like 6 seconds, like off all of your CDs, and then Blessing of Winter is like a small like amount of damage, especially if you put on a demon hunter because they have a lot of haste. And then Blessing of Spring, I think is good for, so it increases your healing done and it increases your healing taken. So if there's something that you need to heal, you can just put it on yourself. If it's just like a trash pack where there's like nothing happening for the most part, except for to the tank, you just put on the tank and it's almost like an external for them because it's going to increase the healing they do and they're only healing themselves, and also going to increase the healing that they take. And since they're healing themselves, it's just, you know, it's a nice little double dip, something that you can use every 3 minutes as well. So I thought that was worth mentioning. And that's basically everything I wanted to touch on with this video. Please let me know what you think in the comments below, if you think the Holy Paladin can compete with the meta right now, if you think that they're going to be the underdog that rises up again like they did in Shadowlands. And thank you so much for watching.